Before we go to the Bibles and some of the history, I just want to start with this. One of them is that you don't provide enough facts. There's not enough facts here. And you went back and looked through the edits from Thomas Nelson.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Do you have that with you?
I don't. It's offset. We can get it at a break.
Grab somebody. Cheryl, if you're around.
It's in my briefcase.
Just grab it. Because we save our edited manuscripts, because the process is important.
Yeah.
You obviously do the same thing. And you have, you found the original manuscript and the edits. Can you explain what this is? Explain what it is.
A lot of the complaints that Throckmorton had about not documentation on it were sections that Thomas Nelson pulled out of the book when they did their edits.
What does he mean by there's no documentation?
Well, you know, it's interesting. The documentation is there. He just doesn't like it. I'll give you one example. For one of the things he really harps on is what's called the Jefferson Bible. And so in the Jefferson Bible, we say, look, there are several editions of the Jefferson Bible out there.
Go ahead.
Because in the 1804 edition, what Jefferson did, this is close to what Jefferson had in 1804. There were two Bibles like this in the White House. Now, that's not the same, but that's what they looked like. That's a later edition. And what he did was he opened those up, and he went through and cut out the passages and put them all together, and he told his friends, this is what we can use with Indians, because you can read the life of Christ here. One of the things that I say is I contend that the passages he cut out included several miraculous supernatural things that the scholars say, oh no, he would never do that, ever do that. So the first guy to really do a reconstruction of it was a guy named Dickinson Adams. Dickinson Adams, back in the 60s and 70s, went and got those two Bibles, looked at every section cut out by Jefferson. Jefferson also did a handwritten list of what he was going to include in this work, and he also wrote the title page for it.
So he went back to the original
Bible
Bible
back to the originals.
that was sitting in the White House that had everything cut out.
That's right.
Okay.
And so he went through, and what they found was there were 16 passages that Jefferson had cut out, passages out of the Gospels telling the story of Jesus. What happened was when Dickinson Adams redid that, and this is done scholarly press, he did that. It turns out he didn't put all the passages in there. He went through and he says right here that he left out 4.5 passages because he couldn't really believe that Jefferson believed the stuff that he cut out of the Gospels. So he made an editorial decision that even though Jefferson cut it out and put it in his manuscript, I'm not going to include it because I don't really think he believed it.
So the original 1804 Bible that Jefferson made, cut and paste, doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't.
But the two Bibles where the verses were cut from, so we have to piece out what was in that Bible.
That's right.
And they're making the case that there's no miracles. So he doesn't believe that Jesus is divine. That's the case they're trying to make.
That's what this guy, he said, I don't believe I don't believe Jefferson thought Jesus was divine.
In 1960, he says that.
It is in 60s and 70s when he's doing his work. So what happens is two more editions come out in the 80s and 90s, these two. And they said, you know, we went back to the Bibles and we're going to include what Jefferson himself did and let that speak for himself.
Right.
Jefferson's own work. So they come out with it. And so when I do the Jefferson Lives, I point out, all right, here's the 3 versions of Jefferson's Bible. Now, there's some difference between them because this guy cut some stuff out. These guys included it. And I said, you look at all of them, I'm going to include what was in the actual Bible. So Throckmorton comes out and says, oh, everybody knows it's not in there because Dickinson Adams is the authority on it. Dickinson Adams tells you in his footnote that he personally did not agree with what Jefferson did, so he's taken it out. Now, that's a problem.
Let me tell you something, David. This is one conversation that I had with a friend who is one of them standing against you and me now. And I said to him, look, what's happening here is, in many cases, it is a scholar building on top of another scholar, on top of another scholar. You have to go back to the original source, not to what somebody else said. They may have been a Christian, they may have been a conservative, they may have had pure intent. They may have, but this will tell the story. Not something that was written
an interpretation of it.
Yes.
And see, that's why we did this, because we wanted to let Jefferson talk for himself. We said, hey, he's got 19,000 writings. Rather than letting a professor interpret it, why don't we just look at his writings? And that's what drives these guys crazy. And so in the critique, he quotes all the professors who said, oh, that's wrong.
Okay, so you don't have to go to the little purple book and the other pink book. You go to those two
That's
books.
right. You go to
see those two books.
And what you've got right there is you can see 16, you can find 16 sections he cut out of those two. And he had to use two books because sometimes you have one on this side, one on the other. You know, so,
right.
So
he cuts them out, and this proves what we're trying to prove is that he believed in the miracles of Jesus Christ.
That's right.
Right?
And he cut them out and put them in.
Right, okay. So,
but the scholars don't agree that he would have done that. They think that's because they start with the assumption that Jefferson is not a very religious guy.
Right.
And therefore, anything that contradicts that, they just go the other way.
So I want to go to this now. And I want you to take a close look. This is what a manuscript looks like. This is chapter 4 of David's book. Now, explain what this is, David.
This is a section on Jefferson and the Bible, and Jefferson and what were called subscriptions to this Bible here, which
we're going to get to here in a second.
And so, in talking about Jefferson's views on the Bible, we go through and provide page after page of his quotes, his writings, and his statements.
Okay. So when they say there's not enough documentation, and Thomas Nelson says, hey, well, we didn't know all of this stuff, and we had some real questions. I want to show you. The black is what was left in after which edit was this? Was this the final edit?
This is final edit.
Okay. So the black is what was left in. The red is what was taken out by Thomas Nelson.
Those are all red pages.
So if you want to see if David had enough documentation, what was removed from this book, you delivered how many words?
85,000.
85,000 word. How many words is that?
Oh, my.
50?
Well,
60,000?
This here is 63,000.
Okay.
So, you know, add another 30%.
Okay. So they took 20,000 words of documentation out of it. All right. There's another charge that your critics are making that I think is a simple misunderstanding, and it revolves around these. This is so easy to understand if you understand something. If you would have had this charge with me even 3 years ago, I don't think I would understand this. But because I understand the new cutting-edge technology, I can explain this. Explain what the controversy is here.
This is a cutting-edge Bible that came out in 1798 that used a brand new printing process that had never been known called hot press printing, where they actually heated and seared the ink into the page. This is the largest Bible printed in America to that time. And
this is great.
Yeah, it is. It's cool. This is the John Thompson hot press Bible.
Okay. And in your book, you say that Jefferson... you don't say sponsored. You say sponsored it?
Help financially. Help financially. Yeah. He invested in. That's
okay.
Right.
All right. And what your critics are saying is he didn't sponsor that. He didn't invest in that. He just bought it. Explain.
It's called subscription. Unlike today, where that we go get a loan and then print a book and get sales back in. Back then, they wouldn't print the book if they couldn't pay for it all up front. So what they would do is they would approach potential buyers and said, if you're interested in buying this book, we'll go ahead and, if we can get a commitment from you to buy, if you'll subscribe to this book, we'll print it. So a lot of times publishers would not print their books because they couldn't get enough people willing to buy it. Jefferson said, you bet, I'll subscribe to this. And and his name is listed in the back, along with a bunch of other signers, Declaration, Constitution, as helping finance this. So once they get their list of subscribers, they know they can print it and not lose money. So they didn't go into debt. It's interesting, Jefferson did that, and these guys, the professors raised a big ruckus about, oh no, a subscriber's not an investor. So I went back to the 1828 Noah Webster's Dictionary, closest to that time, and yeah, a subscriber's an investor. It's giving an IOU to the printer that says, here's the money I'm going to give you. You can take this to go get the book printed. That's an investment in that book.
Okay. Let me give you the real life today example. Can you put this up on the web screen, on the big screen here, Tiffany? You know what I'm talking about, Tiff? What'd you say? Yes. Put Kickstart up, please. You ever heard of Kickstart?
I was told about it just before we started.
Yeah. I'm sitting in a meeting today, and I said, well, this is Kickstart. Okay. What Kickstart is somebody has an idea, and they say, I want to do this idea. And so you invest in it. You may only invest $10. Well, most people will think a big-time investor, you have to put a lot of money in.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
They'll do it $10 a day.
Yeah.
You help them, and they don't make it unless they make enough money.
That's right.
This was the kickstart of our day. Kickstarter was this. It was just done without the technology. And in that time, Kickstarter was called Subscriber.
It was. And what's interesting is when we saw these 23 charges, we went through them, went back and looked at the stuff. We found out that not only did Jefferson subscribe to this Bible, he subscribed to other Bibles as well. He was willing to put his money into other Bibles, which completely drives these guys crazy. We didn't know he did an 1807 subscription to what was called Scott's Bible. And that we do have in the book that he offered to financially fund Charles Thompson in publishing his 2 religious works. But, I mean, what they've done is say, oh, you got subscriber wrong, therefore the whole book is wrong. No, I can prove that that's a subscriber, an investor, and you just did it with Kickstart.
Okay, let me go, when we come back, to the slavery issue. Because this one is big. And they say that it really, truly discredits you. Yeah. And it's really not that complex if you take yourself into their time and then understand the government regulations that we have here today and say, oh, okay, I understand that. Let me look at what was happening back then, and you'll understand it. Thomas Jefferson on slavery next.